Hi, everyone. Welcome to Web3 and Mobility. I'm Josh Squire. I'm with Hopper and the Micromobility DAO. We're here in Miami, and Miami is known as the crypto capital of the world, in case you don't know that. So we have to end the day with exploring blockchain, mobility, and Web3. So let's start off by introducing our two great panelists here. With me is Devon. He's with Fetch AI. And we also have our friend here from City Coins, Andre. And he's local here in Miami. So, Devon, let's start with you. What is Web3 and how does it compare to Web2? And is it better than Web2? In what way?
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it. And with Web3 compared to Web2, really it's about giving the consumer ownership of their things. So whether that's their data, whether it be their things that they're bringing onto the networks, we really want to be giving power back to the consumer and empowering them to basically profit off the things they do in their life. So whether that's creating new content, whether it's bringing on their identities online, Web3 enables them to do that, and then also makes it so that the data that they're sharing and utilizing is decentralized. So it allows us, instead of to have to trust one central party, it allows us to distribute it across many different companies and stakes to facilitate more trust in a trustless environment.
Cool. And we hear a lot about NFTs. Just a few weeks ago, there was a huge NFT conference right here in this hall. And so what is an NFT? And
so a non-fungible token is basically a record on chain that represents a indication of information that is traceable, that someone can't change. So you can think of it as an indication of your driver's license online could be an NFT. You could utilize it as another record of an email or of your vehicle's registration. And it becomes sort of the digital representation of that record that you normally would have some indication from a government or centralized agency that gave credibility to it. You're able to bring that onto the digital environment and then utilize it and give that to your online identity to facilitate transactions on your behalf.
Great. And so let's talk about NFTs and micromobility and how that can interact. So potentially NFTs could be used for access, for ticketing, right?
Yep.
And could be used for memorabilia, maybe?
Rewards, your driver's license, your registration. And so going on the rewards one, a common use case is I'm driving around a city and maybe instead of getting a reward from Lyft or from Uber or from one of these other providers, I'm able to actually get a reward that I own that I can then go utilize to get other benefits from. So there can be utility tied to that NFT, such as trading it for access to other rides, or trading it with others and getting benefits from it. So there's a lot of different use cases that NFTs provide. One of the ones we were talking about beforehand is on the driver's license that I keep mentioning of when we talk about operating in the Web3 space, since it's decentralized, you don't have a centralized party there to sort of regulate different environments or different things that are required to facilitate you to interact in a marketplace with others. And so what an NFT allows you to do is bring in that information, such as the license, that would be required by another individual to interact on the marketplace. So if you think of delivery, for example, right now we sort of put our trust in Uber or Lyft to manage who they trust to come onto their network, and you basically go and say, I trust Uber drivers. with NFTs, instead of trusting Uber, you could say, I only want to trust people that have a driver's license in an NFT. I only want to trust them if they're registered in the city of Miami. I only want to trust them if they have some certification of driver's training, and hopefully the driver's license, provides some of that. But you can create these sort of certifications through the NFT that then allow you to put the onus on these people providing the service that they have to have those for them to serve you, as opposed to trusting Uber to sort of set up some indication of what it is that they're doing to justify.
Sounds pretty cool and efficient too. Andre, so a big driver of Web3 is community. You manage one of the best communities out there called CityCoin. And so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Andre here from CityCoins. And so, basically, Devon spoke previously about how Web3 enables new forms of ownership. And so basically what CityCoins can enable is for people to have ownership in their favorite city. And so at the highest level, you can kind of think of CityCoins as making it as easy to trade a city like you would trade a stock. But the project actually has several layers beyond that. So first, I think about it as an open source platform for developers to build applications to improve their city. And the second thing is that it's a new fundraising mechanism for cities. So cities are able to use CityCoins as a new income stream to fund public goods in their city. I'm sure we're at a transportation conference. Many people are here familiar with municipal bonds. Well, we think of CityCoins as being more similar to municipal equity, giving token holders the ability to share in the upside of their favorite city. The first CityCoin went live last August, right here in the Magic City. So Miami Coin was the first CityCoin to market and very quickly raised north of $20 million that has been put towards initiatives such as rental relief for low-income Miamians. But basically we think that by tokenizing a city and giving ownership to all of a city's residents or stakeholders, we have the ability to create new models of civic engagement and civic participation, really incentivizing sort of pro-social behavior in the city. And from that, it really changes the dynamic between a city and its residents in a way that we believe should hopefully help to automate cities, upgrade a lot of their infrastructure, and really help them share in some of the value that crypto and Web3 can provide for their residents.
Cool. Yeah, and one thing that CityCoin is doing is actually putting some good DeFi money into good city projects, right? So can you talk a little bit about some projects that CityCoins has funded so far?
How the city's using their treasury so far?
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Sure. So really there's been one main disbursement from the Treasury so far. The city of Miami, like many cities around the country, have been sort of challenged by rising cost of housing. And so the city allocated $5.25 million from the total funds that they've been able to raise to provide some rental relief for low-income Miamians. And so that's just the first example of how Web3 and cryptocurrency models can be used to fund public goods for the city of Miami.
So with respect to mobility and CityCoins, how do you see them intersecting and connecting, and in what ways?
Yeah, so I think that there are a number of ways for cryptocurrency and Web3 to start to integrate with transportation. So when I think about Web3, we're really able to leverage token-based incentive models. And so the city government could use this technology to incentivize all kinds of behavior that maybe they want to prioritize micromobility as a way to sort of incentivize cleaner, more efficient alternative transportation options. Maybe they want to incentivize free parking or discounted parking if you hold their city's token, or maybe reduced fares or discounts for taking public transportation. So there's a number of ways that we can start to see that. One other example, so I kind of mentioned this idea of using city coins as a fundraising token, and so I think that we could start to see micromobility operators starting to incorporate this technology as a way to help finance new vehicles in their city. And I think that we could see that along the full value chain. And so, one of the startups that has been working on city coins to date is a company called DataGovs, and they're basically providing a data infrastructure layer for city coins, connecting with Miami's open data APIs. And so, a quick use case that I can talk about is, basically when e-scooters and micromobility came to Miami, one challenge that the city was facing was that people were leaving their scooters everywhere, and the scooter companies were essentially out of compliance. And so basically what this company is doing is providing a way for people to be able to use their 311 complaints to report a scooter that's out of compliance and earn Miami coin for doing so. So you can receive a reward for engaging civically, for participating in your community and doing something that the government sees value in incentivizing. And so that's just one way that we can start to see Web3 models and transportation starting to merge to solve a real problem that cities are facing.
That's awesome. Devon, let's chat about last mile, movement of people and goods within the last mile within cities. So rideshare and food delivery apps, we all use them, right? They're on everybody's phone. And the companies behind them are very centralized Web 2 marketplaces, right? So tell us a little bit about Fetch's vision to decentralize marketplaces, and how will that potentially impact these companies?
Yeah, no, and with our vision for marketplaces is, again, to decentralize them and enable the consumer really to get the most out of it. So we are creating peer-to-peer networks between what we call digital twins that are basically representations of you on the Web3 ecosystem. So as companies and other providers are trying to offer up their supply or their services, we are enabling you to connect into that. And so instead of, again, sort of going to one of these centralized players for micromobility services, you can connect directly with the individual. And so what that enables you to do is reduce these high overheads that you usually run into of having a 30%, 20% overhead on the given, transaction. And the centralized entity will go take a large chunk of that, leaving a very small amount for the driver, for the restaurant, for other people that are engaging on it. And we drive that more to the driver and the restaurant. So we are taking zero commission on these transactions. We're delivering the platform to make it easy to develop your own digital twin and indicate what is the information you want to provide. So if I'm a last mile delivery driver, maybe I indicate that I have an electric scooter or electric vehicle that I'm helping to improve the situation of the city. Maybe I'm interacting with the city coins and going and saying, hey, I'm certified by this and I get some benefit from that. And I am also certified on different things with these NFTs. And that then helps me to rank higher when I come in and say, I want to deliver your goods to you, as opposed to me having to spend money to advertise and drive up where I show up in a search result. It's driven by the information that I'm providing and how those preferences align with what you're asking for, being the consumer. And again, when we're talking about the ownership and trying to bring back the power to the consumer, that is a great way to equalize the playing field for these restaurants and for these delivery drivers, that it's very difficult to compete with the national and international chains when you're a local business, because you can't facilitate those fees. You're making almost nothing when you're doing a delivery, or you're losing money on that transaction. So by having these twins engage on that, it lowers that barrier of entry, gives you more profit, and then also helps you to automate different tasks. So not only can you engage with the marketplace that you're creating the revenue, but like I was mentioning, you could interact with one of these other marketplaces to go and say, you know, I drove 50 miles with an electric vehicle, I didn't use gas, so give me some reward because I'm helping out the city I love, I'm registered in Miami, you know, reward me on that. I need to go and register my vehicle each year. Why do I need to go spend time doing that? So go automate that routine task. And as I'm training my digital twin, it's getting better and better at automating these routine tasks using this grouping of decentralized marketplaces that there's no one owner of, but it has the different indication of what services can be provided. So
Got it. That's fascinating. So with respect to the rideshare drivers and riders, you know, their voices are getting much louder. They're, you know, asking for better work conditions. They're asking for benefits, for relief, for high gas prices, and a lot of things that are associated as being an employee for a company, which they're not, according to the law today. And so let's talk about DAOs as a structure. DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. Don't confuse it with autonomous cars. It's totally different. But is a DAO a better structure than a unionized employee to get your voice out there and you know, create a better marketplace?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a wide debate to be had of, you know, it versus a union, but to your point, it does give the individual a lot of power and say in what they're trying to do. So when you have a DAO, you know, have your voice heard. We were talking backstage on, in Web3, you sort of have your wallet and your identity online that then you can tie into these DAOs to have a vote. And you can go and make a proposal, and you can be heard, and your stake in that DAO drives you know, your ability to go and change and modify what the DAO is doing, and that could be anything from the benefits that organization is providing to each other to managing how an app is being developed. So you could envision a DAO representing an app that is being built for the drivers, and each of those drivers that participates in that app has an active say in the direction that that app takes, as opposed to having to ride back seat to one of these larger companies that is providing an interface for them to engage with their proprietary marketplace. Now they get more say on, you know, rate changes, they get more say on what type of features come into the application, and they are able to control their own destiny when engaging within the organization. And to your point on the unions, it really brings the power to the individual as opposed to sort of a more republic or aggregating the power into a given leader and you sort of vote and drive it through that. You get the direct say on it.
Got it. Andre, so managing a community is hard work, right? It's a totally different structure than managing a company where the CEO or board could decide what to do. In a community, you have to convince everybody to go in a certain direction, and anybody could bring up a proposal, and if it gets enough momentum, it could be passed, right? And so it's really the DAOs are owned by the participants of that community and the token holders, right? So do you think that one day we will see rideshare companies and food delivery apps that are DAO types that are managed by the community, and do they have a chance to compete with Uber and others?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think maybe it's helpful to kind of really break down what we mean when we're talking about a DAO. I think that this is a term that can be really complex for a lot of people. But you know, the easiest way that I like to think about it are that it's basically a way to leverage community and capital in pursuit of a common mission. And so DAOs are really just a software that enable this new forms of cooperation within our communities. And so, I think that we're going to see DAOs basically become ubiquitous in order to just automate a lot of the existing operations that we see companies and cities facing. And so, yeah, when I think about, to Devon's point about ride-sharing apps and how companies and how his company is looking to integrate this technology, basically automating a lot of the overhead and back office. And so you're able to effectively pass on that efficiency to the users of the app who are effectively owners in this instance. And I think that this resonates really well with what we're doing over at CityCoins also. We basically see it as a way to upgrade and modernize city services. But so by doing that, we can hopefully just sort of create a new platform for just like the automation and a lot of things that have typically required large IT departments or have become outdated in city services over the past several decades. We can look to automate that with this new automation infrastructure.
Yeah, and when you think about how transportation is funded in this country, and a lot of it comes from federal grants, right, which is sometimes very slow, and I guess we see a lot of money getting poured into infrastructure when there's either an economic meltdown or a pandemic, for example, right? And that's what it takes to invest in infrastructure and build a road or a bridge. So I'm kind of thinking like, cryptocurrency is rewriting the whole financial system, if you will. And the banks we know today are probably going to be obsolete, or service providers. The way assets, real world assets get funded is going to be a lot different than what we're used to, right? So do you think like government, the federal government, can use structures like DAOs, CityCoins to implement policy and get projects done maybe faster? I mean, I still don't understand why we don't have a fast train from Miami to Orlando, like in China, like the ones that go like 200 miles an hour. Like, why doesn't that exist? I have no idea. But it's probably due to funding, red tape, and maybe these new structures could change the funding paradigm for transportation.
Absolutely. I do think that these new technologies are complementary to existing governments and services. We're not necessarily looking to replace everything, but more so be able to leverage technology to bring about new and increased efficiency in some of these operations. And so, we spoke previously about how we could potentially use CityCoins as a new fundraising source, and I think that applies for micromobility as well. Josh, you and I have spoken a lot about potential to use CityCoins to fund microtransport, maybe e-scooter, e-bike and e-scooter options in the city. And by doing that, the token holders could become owners and potentially even receive automated some types of royalties on that in the future. So again, basically just like looking to automate some of these services that have become somewhat outdated and pass a lot of those cost savings and efficiencies on to the users of the application.
Yeah, micromobility is not outdated yet. They're just getting started, but so micromobility, very popular, right? People love it. Cities like them, but they're also concerned about safety and parking, all these different things, and it's good for the environment. It's good for the city. It doesn't pollute. It costs less than all these benefits, right? Yet the business model makes no sense, right? So we were first funded by grants, bike share. Then we got funded by VCs, right? And then we got subsidized by rideshare companies like Uber and Lyft, who own a lot of bike share systems or companies. And so it seems to me like with something so popular and so good, why can't we find a way to fund this in a way that makes sense? And big cities, they have the density, they have the population, they have the rides, but the medium-sized cities, the smaller cities, they get less. They get less micromobility because the funding model isn't there. So do we wait for government to fund this? Or maybe there's a better way. Maybe crypto, maybe the community could fund it by minting vehicles, getting a little royalty, and then employers paying a ride token, for example, and they give it free to their employees as a benefit, as a HR benefit, right? So these are the things that the micromobility DAO is exploring. We're looking for creative ways of integrating Web3 with mobility. If you have any ideas, you're welcome to join us. We're going to be experimenting with some of these projects, most likely here in Miami. And, you know, I'm not sure they're going to work, but if there's a little chance that they will, it's worth trying, right? And so, yeah, any closing remarks?
No, I mean, I think, you know, touching on the micromobility DAO, there's so many new opportunities coming up, and especially with autonomy, some of these different, you know, minting of the actual scooter or some of these other components, and creating a twin of it on the ecosystem that you can then interact with less overhead, with more automations, and drive down the cost of ownership of these for companies to, you know, actually benefit from facilitating that service, and then also tying these things into these new, you know, tokens and services and ways that the cities can operate, you know, creates many new ways that we can, you know, fund them to facilitate expanding those services that people love to have, and then also reduce the issues that we run into of, you know, where they're distributed all over the city and you don't have them, you know, local. You can benefit from, you know, getting demand from individuals that can go and be rewarded, get NFTs that they then own, and some of these others. So it's very exciting to be, you know, in the space right now when all of these different components are starting to come together, and we're sort of developing the tools to make it easier for any business to get on and benefit from, you know, the additional supply, the additional demand, the additional efficiencies, whether that be on the overhead or just the transactions. I mean, when we were talking backstage around, you know, how you're utilizing the tokens to transact, and the efficiencies that you get on that compared to me having to give you $1 or one of these other things, it's amazing to see how far we've come over the last, you know, 5 years.
Yeah. Andre, where do you see city coins in the next 3 years? How many cities will actually have a city coin? Today there's 3, right?
Today there's 2.
Oh,
so,
2. Okay.
So we're live in Miami and New York. Both cities have generated in excess of $20 million each for their city to fund public goods in the city. It's tough. I think in the next 2 years was the question. I think it's possible that we could see upwards of 100 to 200 plus city coins. I think, you know, every major city, every city that sees itself as a startup city could potentially have one. And it really is a community-led effort. So it's really up to the local stakeholders in each city to develop a plan for how we want to incorporate technology into the city. How are we educating our residents about the potential benefits that this can provide? And you know, I really like to think about things in the context of, you know, what are the problems that technology is going to solve, and where can we you know, use these sort of token-based incentive models and updated, you know, automation platforms to realize some of those benefits. And so I think that, you know, in the context of what we've been talking about with micromobility, you know, we're seeing that, you know, cities have a lot of reasons to incentivize that kind of behavior, whether it's to cut down on emissions and have like a greener solution, to reduce traffic in their city, or many of the other benefits that you can get from micromobility transport. And so, you know, while it's still early and a lot of these models are still sort of in their proof of concept stage, I think this technology is here to stay, and it's definitely where the future is headed. And so it's all about figuring out how we can incorporate that to solve real problems for city residents.
That's awesome. I think there's a bright future for city coins. And I have a modest goal. My goal is to make micromobility completely free to ride, incentivizing people to make good transportation choices. So if you decide not to take a car, then that benefits society by taking micromobility, right? So I think, you know, there should be a social currency for that, and city coins might be that social currency. So we're going to build that together. All right, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.